Welcome to Write That Down, a Probetus podcast. I'm your host, Matt Fisher. To my left is my co-host,
Phil
Irwin. And in front of me, my other co-host, Mark Jensen. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
How are we doing today?
On my end, it's been a pretty wild day. Mark's day has been rough.
Rough? Like, probably not going to talk about it rough.
No, we shouldn't talk about it.
But when we think about this episode, we'll know.
We'll know that while we were recording this, things were not perfect in the homeland.
Okay. But other than that, great, right?
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
Awesome day. Mark, good day today, right?
Wonderful.
Yes, super duper. Well, I just wanted to start out like we have the past couple episodes until, we get our large major following, and talk a little bit about what this show is all about. Really what it comes down to is Mark and Phil started working at Probetus about a year and a half ago. And I would randomly say these words of wisdom, and I would say, write that down. And I've honestly been doing that most of my adult life because when I was in college, I watched the movie Van Wilder way too many times. And the main character from that movie always used to say, write that down. So I thought it was funny, so I do it. Obviously, nobody in my life ever wrote anything down until Phil started working with me. And Phil had a notebook and he decided to write that down because he felt as though Matt wasn't being sarcastic because Matt's always sarcastic and he should probably write that down, and he did.
You were being serious. There was a chance anyway. And so I better write it down to avoid being fired just in case.
And Mark knew me well enough to know that,
I just rolled my eyes.
yes, there's a lot of eye rolling, very similar to what my lovely wife would do, my children, and anybody else that knows me well enough. And Phil didn't yet.
I still don't.
He still doesn't.
Yeah.
Good. I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page there. All right. So Phil's been writing this stuff down, and we're like, well, let's take a look at that notebook. And there was actually a decent list of things. And truly, right before I say write that down, I kind of have a mini blackout, so I don't really know what I'm saying. And more than likely, it's not grains of wonderful wisdom. But we're going to go through anyways and try to dissect it and see if there's anything that was halfway decent that we could pull from it.
I'm excited for this week because I feel like this one is a legit motivational poster.
Wow.
It's on the same caliber of those classic motivational posters that you'd see in your guidance counselor's office.
Like with the cat hanging there?
Not usually a cat.
Is that a dentist's office?
Yeah, usually the ones I'm talking about are the ones that have like a beautiful scenery. So like a waterfall and it says the word teamwork.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
then something
yeah.
really motivational, but deep inside, you know that like it's probably not going to happen. But this one's pretty good.
All right. And it was
I
one
don't
of the
think we had posters like that when I was in school.
Really?
Not with the scenery. No. It was probably of a dog or a cat or an animal and some words of wisdom.
No, Mark.
Hang in there.
That's when you're in kindergarten and you were learning to read, and it was like, no, that was Spot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, and
maybe I
then you
didn't
get-
spend enough time at the guidance counselor's
Well,
office.
plus you probably just went to school to like learn things like reading, writing, arithmetic, and not like needing to be motivated to do such a thing.
Right. I think that arithmetic,
Yeah.
just on a side note, I graduated college without a math class. So I did really good.
That's impressive.
Well done.
I mean, as somebody who's from the college world in your previous life, like, is that heard of really?
You can't do it anymore.
Wow.
It is kind of funny though, because I worked I'll just say it. I worked at the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks for 9 years. And I worked with a couple different people, but one lady I worked with got a degree from UND before all the degrees were 4-year. Like now, like 4 years is the minimum degree. And back when they were doing degrees that were less than 4 years. So it's come a long way over the years. And so now they force you to do a lot of things because it's liberal arts and you need to do a little bit of everything to make sure you're a well-rounded individual.
So Matt, was your degree, just a 1 year?
Stop. And I know where you're going, and it's fine.
Oh,
I'm going to say, like, today I've been triggered five times now. This is the fifth time. So I know we talked about this earlier. It's been a great day. It's an awesome day. But yes, my degree at North Dakota State University was 6 years.
And
And it
that
was
was,
2 degrees.
oh, I thought that was just for you to get like a couple credits.
Fine.
Took you
All right.
6 years.
So we're gonna go back to this wonderful motivational comment that I made. I'm gonna say the quote, and this is probably the shortest one I think we have in the notebook.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna try to find out why I said it, if we can even remember that. So the quote from today is, "No means next opportunity." Motivated. Okay, now we're motivated.
Yeah,
I'm
and
motivated.
Forward.
And just
Mark's
so-
motivated. You could see it in his face.
Just so the
Phil.
listeners realize how great this is, it's an acronym. NO, next opportunity. Like when you first hear it, you're like, okay, neat, like moving on, like next opportunity. But really, it's an acronym. Each letter stands for something. It's so mind blowing.
Deep. Wow. I mean, the deepness of it.
Yeah.
Acronyms and such. So when I said this, what's going on over there? I can't see behind my back. Mark's got cameras everywhere. He's pretty much in charge of this whole thing, and I'm just, Phil and I are like going crazy over here. All right, so we've got an acronym. Oh, brother. All right. Peanut gallery back there.
Yeah. I'm ready.
So-
Ask me a question.
Hey, Phil, when I said NO, no stands for next opportunity, where were you at? What kind of space were you in? What was all of that going on in your mind? And
Yeah.
why would I say such a thing?
This is another one where I probably blacked out because it was so amazing, the wisdom I was receiving. However, I'm going to guess that I probably had called on a client, worked on something really hard, and then they decided to pass on the project. And so I got like, probably it was one of my first big like no's, like, hey, we're not going to do this. I know you spent your time on this, and we're going to go start seeing other people effectively. And so I was, you get a little discouraged. You're like, man, they said no. And Matt was just right there. And you're like, no means next opportunity. And it was something I had to write down.
Very cool. I'm glad it was motivational enough for you to be able to get you through that day. Probably.
Yeah.
Possibly the week.
I'm pretty sure that well, it's like almost 2 years later and I'm still doing it.
Yeah, geez, that was a long time ago. All right, so I'm going to kind of go with my gut on this one and the next opportunity thing and the no. So when you're in sales and truly in life, you hear no a lot. We live in a world of negativity and no, I don't want to do that, can't do that, sorry, tough luck. And what we get into a tizzy as people, and we get to the point where we're like, well, this is how I expect it. This is what I want. And if it doesn't happen the way I want, that's literally the end of the world. That's the world that we're living in as humans. And I think it's getting progressively worse. And truly, the question I have for you both is, and this, I kind of asked you this before today, and I said, think about this. And I'm hoping that you guys put some thought into it. But I asked you, when is a time in your life when you heard no? When you expected things were going to go a certain way, you knew it was the way that it was meant to be, and you were said, no, that's not going to be the way it's going to be. And from that, something awesome came. I'm going to go first, just to kind of set the tone. Mark, is that okay if I go first?
Sure. You're in charge.
Yeah, and I'll probably put the camera on you because as we talked about last episode, I still don't know where these cameras are going. Oh, there's me, there's Phil, there's Mark, there's me, and now I've given somebody a seizure because I did it too fast, and I apologize truly for that. So the next opportunity for me that I'm going to talk about, I went to college down at North Dakota State University, got my degree in 4 years in communication. My lovely fiance at the time was getting her degree in architecture, so she was 2 years behind me in school. So she had 2 years to go, and I was wearing a red shirt and khaki pants most nights and weekends because I worked at Target. And my first job ever was out at Target. I lived in Grand Forks during the flood of 1997. Our house was fortunate enough not to be in the floodplain. My family went to Harvey, North Dakota to live with with part of my family. And my dad said, guess what, son? You're staying home because you're getting a job. And I called Target and they're expecting you tonight. So that was my first job in the real world was Target.
You didn't even have to interview?
No, I mean it was the flood. Like they were taking anybody. Like and even young Matt Fisher was able to work overnights at Target. So, anyways, fast forward, I worked through high school into college. I was a Target junkie. I was never going anywhere. I was gonna work for Target forever, and they had an executive position in Brainerd, North Dakota, but I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to apply for that. I didn't want to be in that executive team lead position. I wanted to wait for my fiance, and then we were going to do this wonderful retail dream, and I was going to be store manager at Target and all that stuff. But in the meantime, they had a level 3 position open. So for all of you Target junkies out there, you know what a level 3 is. It's a mid-management position, and I was going to apply for that in the Moorhead store and do that for 2 years. Perfect. Been at Target for 6 years at that time. I was ready to kind of start my real career with the company. And we got to the point where I was ready to interview, and it was between me and a couple other people. And I was sure it was going to be me. Did the interview and all that stuff. Got the phone call. Sorry, Matt, you didn't get the job. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You guys have talked about me going like upper management stuff, and this is just a place a bit. Well, Matt, this is why, and you know all the reasons. And that was crushing, truly. It was like, this was my plan. This is where I was going to go. And Target said, nope, I don't care. That's not your job. And within a week, I was approached by the chair of the communication department, which I was still in at the time. And they said, hey, we need a TA. We'll pay for all of your grad school if you come teach for 2 years in NDSU. And we think you'd be perfect. There's no interview, anything. We want you to do this. And ended up getting my 2-year master's degree, and that put me down a different path, obviously, than what was expected when I was going to take this Target career. So that no turned into something way better.
You definitely don't wear red very often anymore. Are you like still going through withdrawals or like PTSD because of the uniform?
Not so much that, but have you guys ever been to Target wearing red and
Oh yeah, it's a
khaki
thing.
by accident?
Yeah.
Like Mark, I mean, have you had any experiences where you've been asked?
Well, you know, I think sometimes, I don't know, like you just have that retail look. I've worked retail a lot over my career. And you know what? I couldn't be at almost any store a lot of times. And people will turn to me and say, hey, can you help me? I'm like, sorry.
You
Can't
look
help
like
you.
you know what's going on.
Right. You know, just on a side note, like years ago, there was a person here in town who thought I was her interior designer. And I had to break the news to her and said, nope, that wasn't me. It was somebody else. And it's here ran into her like a month and a half later. And she goes, oh my gosh, the Bridge women just love what you did to my house. And I'm like, sorry, that's not me. You have me mistaken. You know, and then you kind of go on in life. Probably ran into her again a few months later. And she's like, oh my God. Those Bridge women, they just would love someone wants you to do some work for them. And I said, well, just tell them thank you and I'm busy. Because, you know, but so sometimes, you know what, I do kind of get that. But I think it's that retail concept, you know, when you've been in it, or maybe it's just that I have that flashing above me like, he will help you.
Yes, and you are the customer service guru. You are fantastic at it.
And sometimes, you know, you can have fun with it and just tell them, sure, we'll go for a little tour around the store.
Exactly. Well, Mark, since you're kind of talking right now, do you have a time in your life when you remember hearing no, and it was truly what was meant to be because you had the next opportunity?
Well, yeah, I think it has happened a few times, like kind of back, like you said, more in like applying for jobs. You know, you kind of think, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing. You know, here's my path. And all of a sudden, like you said, you're no. And at first, you know, you're just like, oh my gosh. You know, you're kind of defeated. Like I always say, you know, when you get the you suck letter in the mail, like, guess what? You had great qualifications, but we do not want you. You know, and then it's kind of like at first you go through that. But you know what? I always feel like, you know, when one thing closes, that window opens and there's another opportunity out there. You know, you just got to look at it that way. So I think it has happened quite a few times.
Right.
In personal life, you know, or it could be, let's see, when else? I guess I'm trying to think of anything more recent, but I'd say more so like just careers. And I think that's what everybody kind of goes through, you know, because you have your mindset, you know, when you do apply for something or, you know, even just to like in our line of work, there are those times where, you know, you've done all the work. You think, oh gosh, I got the great stuff for the client. And all of a sudden they're like, no.
Right.
And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It literally happens in our job. I would say maybe not daily, but Quite a bit.
regularly. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Phil? Has there been a time in your life when you've heard no and it was truly the next opportunity for you?
Yeah. I have a similar one. If this is too lame, you can ask me for another one. I'll bring up a more personal one. But
Start with the personal one.
oh man,
Yeah. Let's skip that.
I don't know.
I kind of like you even laid that out. You're like,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like you really want to share that one though.
Well, we'll see. I just have to think about who's going to listen someday. Anyway, okay.
Planet Earth.
So I'm currently married. Been married to my spouse since 2009. And we had an extremely long, I'm going to call it a dating relationship, and not because I wanted it to be extremely long. Just put it that way. So I had asked her to date me after knowing her for at least a year. And she said no. And it sounds backwards because, like, what was your next opportunity? My next opportunity was not a different person. I was like, that is not going to work for me. And so I remember that conversation being like, you know what? Don't say no now. Like, just pretend you didn't say that. Let's just hold off a couple months. And then we'll revisit the situation. And she was like, that's weird. Okay. And so we hung out some more and asked her again a couple months later. And she said, no, again. And I'm like, are you serious? Because I mean, look at me. I'm a handsome fellow.
He's a keeper.
Oh man, I had it going on.
Suzanne, you hear that? He's a keeper.
Keeper. So I asked again, and I got the no again, and I was like, "This is really crazy. I didn't expect it." Because like nobody really asks or like tries to do something if they truly expect it to fail or fall, miserably on your face. So with the second no, then I got the no, I don't think so. But why don't you talk to my dad about it? Traditional. So I'm like, absolutely. I'm a likable guy. So I very quickly scheduled the meeting with Suzanne's dad and said, hey, we've known each other for a while. I've been hanging around. You know who I am. And I'd like to date your daughter. And he's like, oh, thank you for asking. No. And I'm like,
Okay, so
wow. So
truly, you've heard no four times now?
No, that was 3.
Let's look at 3. Okay. I'm just trying to keep track of my cheat sheet here.
That was 3. And the story is actually quite long because it was like, all right, well, I'm still going to hang out with her exclusively. But he advised that I wait a year. So I waited a year and asked again. And I got then the 4th no.
So there was a 4th no.
2 from Suzanne, 2 from Suzanne's father. And it progressed. And so we dated. We weren't actually dating, but it was like a 4-year process, and it took 3 years before I could, I guess, officially say that we were dating, as defined by what people would define as dating.
So in other words, like if social media was big then, your thing would be it's
complicated. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to catch up to the phase here.
Good point, because at that time it was MySpace. MySpace was where it was at. I was playing in a rock band, and so that was social media. And then all of basically like Facebook was just the drunk college kids that wanted to post photo albums of their drunk parties. I mean, if you were around when Facebook first came out, like you had to be in college, have a college email, and it was so fun because you could post your albums of your get-togethers. Anyway, but yeah, so it was pre-Facebook when all of this was going on. But all that to say that I think what was good about the various no's, I'll just put it that way. It slowed down the relationship to an extreme degree, to the point where you had to get to know each other in different, capacities extremely well. Like we spent a lot of time together, a lot of time in groups, a lot of time with, honestly, just me and her family sometimes. And so by the time we got to where we were actually saying like, hey, we're dating, it's exclusive, like I had already known her extremely well for three-ish years. And so in that sense, I feel like the relationship was able to develop in a very mature fashion. We'd seen each other at our highest highs, lowest lows, frustrating, not frustrating. It was just like real life, being friends with somebody for that long. And so in that sense, it became a good opportunity to really dive in, get to know somebody the way you should. Does that make sense? Was that too personal?
No, not too per. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's deep stuff.
Well,
Like,
if we're going personal, I got a story. Picture it.
uh-oh.
Around probably 84, 85.
Okay.
Park River Aggie Sea Squad playing basketball against the Adams Rockets, Adams, North Dakota gymnasium. I tried to be an athlete,
Yes.
rode the bench most of the time. I was one of them who got in the game when it was like up by 30 or behind by 30 with 30 seconds left, so I can't screw anything up. All of a sudden, I get in the game. The coach says, Jensen, you get in. First reaction was, no, I don't want to play. I sat here all day. Why would I go in?
I'm good.
But you know what I thought this time? You know what? I think I'm going to go into the game. I got into the game. 30 seconds left. We were behind probably by 30 points. All of a sudden, the ball comes to me. I'm sure the other 4 players were thinking like, no, even if we're behind. So you know what I did? I used all my might and I threw that ball up, and that ball just soared up in the air. And you know what? Swish. It was a 3-pointer. And the whole gymnasium, both towns, the Adams Rockets and the Parker Aggies went crazy for me. And then my basketball career was done. So that was an opportunity for me to prove that I could make a
I'm out of
3-pointer.
here. I've done it. I'm good.
That was before Forrest Gump even came out.
Wow.
So how's that? Can you top that one?
No, and I'm not even going to try. You guys have like completely opened yourselves up.
Now I've just spilled my guts about my
Yeah.
athletic ability.
I know it's.
And you're talking about Target. Like,
Yeah.
how many millions of people have the same story as you?
Oh, and then I got another
at
no.
Target.
Do you know what it's like being the most unathletic in your class? You're always the last one picked too in Fayette. They're all like, nope, don't want him. Nope, easy out, don't want him. But you know what my opportunity was? Well, what was the opportunity? I guess,
I bet it was something really good, Phil.
yeah, maybe it was just no. Maybe it was just rejection. So I'm probably used to rejection. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the last kid picked.
I was gonna say, what was what door did the 3-pointer open up for you?
I think I just got the ball in my hand and I thought, screw it. I never get in the game. I'm going to see what I can do, and swish. And like I said, it's a dream come true. Seeing that whole auditorium go wild. And we probably, because that still lost by 35 points. But you know what? I got my name in the book. That's what my brothers always told me too. They said, you know, even if you get in the game, follow right away, because at least you get your name in the book. You've done something.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I want to just do a quick recap of no stands for next opportunity. First off, myself, most typical story on human history, according to Mark. Target, sad story, loss, rejection. Phil, it's a story of love and length and more love and waiting. And finally, the no turned into a yes. And Mark,
The Olympics.
swish.
Swish.
Well, thank you all for joining us on episode 2. I had a great time. I look forward to the next episode with you guys. We'll see you like in a week, I think.
Yeah. When is our next opportunity to record, Matt?
Our next opportunity is next week, I believe. Yeah.
Let's do it.
So, all right, guys. If you need anything, get a hold of Probetus. ProbetusPromo.com. Best promo, best swag. ProbetusPromo.com.